Welcome to Global Signs. I'm Bruce Han. We have the great pleasure of speaking with a wonderful friend of Korea business news. From the UK, Simon Hopkins, the CEO of Miltrust International, will share his insights on global markets as well as the economy. Simon, Happy New Year and thank you for joining us again today.
Hello, Bruce. Good to see you again.
Thank you. You're also an expert in emerging market equity. After a stellar performance in 2020, Latin America and Asia were flat in 2021. What is your outlook for 2022?
Well, what a challenging question. I think last year the real disappointment was Latin America, but also China, which of course was down. The MSCI China was down in the order of 20%. But there were a few bright spots in the emerging market landscape last year. Commodity-driven parts of the world, like Russia, the Middle East, did well. Africa did relatively well. And of course, Korea and Taiwan, if you can still call those developing countries, they are of course included in the indices, and they were a very bright spot, largely because I think of the tightening of global supply chains, the strength of the semiconductor market. So in the course of the next year, we would expect to see that perhaps loosening up a little bit, and perhaps a performance coming from some of the catch-up markets like Southeast Asia, where recovery has really been held back by a prolonged COVID situation. But I would expect to see some of those economies uncoiling. I think what we've seen is, again, this situation where inflation has reared its head and the US dollar has been very strong. And this has held back the performance of some of the emerging markets. I can't really fail to mention the excitement in India, which is the real outlier. India has been an amazing market in the course of the last 12 months. Because of this craze amongst retail investors, Bruce, there have been 20 million new retail investors in India in the course of the last 12 months, signing up, opening up new stock market dealing accounts, and now accounting for about 50% of the volumes of the Sensex index.
The possibility of tapering was mentioned during December's FOMC meeting. Do you still think that the stock market is an attractive investment destination this year when interest rates are expected to rise?
Well, as I mentioned, I think rates have probably already been factored into markets, particularly into the US. The relative strength of the US dollar and the equity market is testament to this. Some of this in response to the tightness in the global supply chain, labor shortages, port digestion, sharp increases in shipping costs. They've all been very big contributory factors to the inflationary environment. But it's COVID inflation. It's likely to be ephemeral. So I think we're probably set for some disappointment in the US in the course of the next 12 months.
The economic problem that ran through the end of last year and the beginning of this year is inflation. Can you provide inflation hedging investment strategy for individual investors?
We believe that it's highly likely that the technology industry will remain pretty robust. It will benefit from sustainable inflation. There's a lot of price elasticity in the market. So we're going to stick with the semiconductor industry, and particularly we like Korea's dominance in the electric vehicle battery innovation. So we're sticking with Samsung SDI and SK Innovation.
When you were on our show last July, you advised our viewers to pay closer attention to Korean semiconductor and eco-friendly companies. Would you advise our viewers to do so again this year?
Yes, I would, certainly. And I think last year, one of the stocks that we went with was Samsung Electronics And we'll stick with that this year for the very same reasons.
Now, finally, Simon, can you recommend any global and Korean stocks to our viewers today?
Two international stocks we like, Bruce, include a Hong Kong listed company called Mint, a Chinese company which produces aluminium casings for electric batteries for the electric vehicle industry. It trades only on 15 times. We think it represents good value. It's not one of the stocks you immediately think of as a play on EV. And we think a good selection for 2022. Another company we like is a company that's emerging as one of the world's leaders in metal recycling and electronics recycling. That company is called Sims Australia, an Australian listed company. And again, one we think will have a tremendous growth trajectory. Again, it trades on only 15 times earnings.
Simon Hopkins, Dynamic CEO of Miltrust International, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your insights on the markets and your stock recommendations.
Thank you, Bruce. 새해 복 많이 받으세요.
감사합니다. 새해 복 많이 받으십시오. Simon makes several stock recommendations today. His Korean stock recommendations are Samsung SDI, Samsung Electronics, SK Innovation, and his international stock recommendations are Hong Kong listed Mint and Australia listed Sims Australia. Thank you so much for being with us today, and until we meet next week, please be safe, careful, and vigilant.